So almost like 3 years ago now, my cousin and I developed a game which went on to become really viral and like created its own genre of trivia games, and it had like over 5 million views on TikTok, and millions of people had played the game. So my cousin is like really into sports and trivia games, and one of the games that he would play with his friends is that they take two football players who've never actually played with each other, and then they would try to find a third player who's played with both of them. So like if you take like Ronaldo and Messi, they've never played with each other, but there is a third football player that has played with both of them. And he would play this game manually with his friends, but we thought it would be cool to just make a little game that would do this automatically for you. The logic for this game isn't really that difficult, we just needed the data. And so my cousin found a website which had all the data that we needed, but they didn't have any public API. So he just wrote a web scraper in Python, and then we just scraped their website and got all of the data that we needed. I then developed the front end and back end for the application, and I was focused on sort of really making it mobile friendly because most people who would play this would be playing it on their phone. And it wasn't like super complex to build this. And we basically had a working version by the end of the day. One of the technical challenges was actually the drop down list for selecting who that third football player is, so like actually inputting your answer. The reason why is like there's over 50,000 football players, and we had a list of all of them. And so as soon as you clicked on that drop down, it would just lag out your computer because it's trying to render a really long list. And so I had to use virtualization there so that the entire drop down list doesn't render at once, it only renders as you scroll down through it. And another thing that I did is I actually added filtering. So we don't even show the drop down until you start typing in two letters. And that way the list is much shorter than the full 50,000. And that made the performance a lot better on all the different devices. So I don't play football, so I was really bad at the game. But at the time I was quite into Formula One. So I asked my cousins to scrape data for Formula One. And once we had that data, we just copied the website, but then just changed the backing data set to be Formula One data instead. Once we had that, I shared it on some Formula One subreddits, and it actually got hundreds of upvotes, and people were really interested in the game. And I even had people DMing me telling me how much they enjoyed it and they were playing it daily. So it was really cool to get that feedback and like see that some people were interested in the game. And my cousin was also playing the FIFA version and sharing it with people. And then eventually it actually somehow made its way onto like some random TikTok page and got over like 400,000 views. So it was starting to get viral, and everyone was asking, oh, what's the website? How can I play this? And then once we saw people were like, a lot of people were going on the website, we added Google AdSense to it. And then once we had that, we were able to print some money, honestly, off the website, which we only developed in like a couple of days. And now we had it producing money for us. Eventually, the project did die down, and like it's not like we made some crazy amount of money. We made like a couple $1,000s, but it was really cool considering the effort that we ended up putting in, right? There's a lot of other cool things that came out of it. Like, for example, the like official Man City esports team would make regular videos playing the game, and they would even feature our website. Eventually, they would make videos that they don't mention our website, but they would still use the name of our game. So they would call it Link the Players, and linking the players. And this sort of became a trend. So like other people would make videos and they would all call it Linking the Players, which is funny because I actually came up with that name with ChatGPT. So that name is like, we came up with that like as a genre. Another cool thing is that when I actually started working like my full-time job, someone found out that I had made this game, and they told me that they would play it before they even knew who I was. So that was kind of cool to hear that my game was known by people IRL who didn't actually know me before that. We still periodically update the game, and I even have like an email so that people can report any mistakes or if there's any errors with the game. And I still get emails like almost every week telling me like, hey, please update this, fix this mistake. I'm not that engaged with the project right now, but it's cool to see that people are still interested in it. So the game did go viral, and this virality actually caused some massive problems for us. The first one is that we were using the Vercel free tier to host it, and that has certain limits for the free tier. So we were using a lot of serverless functions, and we were massively exceeding it. I think the free tier gives you like 1,000 gigabyte hours of processing, and we were going way over that. And so we were hit with like a $60 overcharge fee, which really sucked. And I really wanted to make the money back. That's actually why I ended up adding the AdSense, because I was like, I want to make my money back on this game. Like when we made this project, it was just for fun, so we didn't care about optimizations. And so we did a lot of things that were really bad for performance because it just meant completing the project quicker. The main culprit of this high serverless function usage was actually the method that we used for generating the games. So the games are random, right? And the way it worked was really stupid. Basically, the user would request a game, which would call a function. This function would then pick two random players from our list of players, and then it would check if they have never been teammates. If they've never been a teammate, then great. We'll now check if they have any mutuals. And then if they did have any mutuals, then great. Then it's possible that we have a game. And then if it couldn't find a game, or they have already been teammates, then we would just repeat the process. And I literally had a for loop, which would loop 100 times. So we would do it like 100 attempts, and this was really bad because obviously if we did these 100 attempts and none of them generated a game, then the user would just get an error and they would have to re-request the game, right? This is possible, and like I like to imagine that there is like a universe where a game never worked because every time it would pick two players, there would never be any mutuals. But then the other issue that we had is that the function for generating the games was non-deterministic. And the reason is that that function we were calling would always just pick two random players, and so we couldn't really cache it properly. And because we can't really cache it, we can't optimize it, and so every time we would be running these 100 loops. So the solution we came up with is to just go back to one of the initial ideas that we had, which was to pre-generate all of the games. So what we would do is we'd go through the player list for each player, check it with another player, and then generate it. And so this is like a ON squared operation, but it was fine. Like we just have to do this early on, like before we release the game, and then once we have all of that data, we can just very quickly pick out games and return them to the user. So there's no more picking two players and doing a bunch of checks. We knew how many games were possible because we pre-generated all of them, and we just randomly pick one and to return it to the user. Now, pre-generation does have a few problems. The main one is that if we add any new players or we have to change our data, we'd have to pre-generate all of the games. But overall, this wasn't really a big deal and it wasn't too expensive to do that, so we didn't mind that. Once we did this, we dropped from like over 1,000 gigabyte hours to less than 100 gigabyte hours, so we were no longer being overcharged, which was great. Once we had this winning formula for a game and like we knew people were interested in this genre of trivia, we actually just copied the template to support other sports. So we were supporting like NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, and UFC. So we supported all of these different games, and my cousin would just go scrape all the data that we needed, and then we'd put the data on MongoDB, and then we just make a new website that uses that data. And then to further capitalize on the idea, I did consider making like a mobile app version, but I didn't really get far with it. I just wasn't passionate about the project, and I didn't really enjoy the development experience for mobile. That being said, I am getting into mobile development again, and so you might see more videos about that from me. But yeah, that's definitely one angle that we could have gone in, is to like make an actual mobile app. But I think making it a very simple website that anyone can access is honestly the right choice. I think this project is a great example of just doing something for fun, and then eventually maybe it just goes viral and gets popular. You know, we had no expectation that anyone else would use this. It was just for us, and we just wanted to share with a few people who are into these sports. But it was really encouraging to then see people, you know, make their own videos and like actually play this game. I really encourage people to sort of make their own projects and release them just for fun. The really important part here is to actually publish your projects or your websites, and don't just leave them in development, right? Because if they're in development, only you can use them, and you can maybe show them to a few people, but you actually need to publish your projects so that other random people can try them out, and that's really where it gets interesting. Actually publishing your app is what makes people use them, and it's really fun to sort of have people use your projects and get feedback that way. Also, you never know if something does go viral and will become really popular, or like someone is looking for a project that you built, and you can just be like, hey, I've actually already built this thing, you can just check it out. If you've already made a project or you're thinking about making a project, definitely join the Localhost Discord. There's a lot of people there who can help you with your project, give you feedback, and basically be your first users if you're interested. We already have a ton of people there making and sharing their projects, so it's a great place to hang out.